Um, the next thing I'm going to write is new x, which is something that harks back to the old Max 4 way of describing things in Max patches. So what am I going to do next? I'm going to, after the new x, which actually, let's have a look at an example of some old Max, some old Max code here. This is what happened when you open an object as text. You would see it like this. It doesn't look like that or open a patch as text. If you do that in the new Max, let's have a look at that. Open as text. We can look at, okay, here's any kind of random patch. You can see that the new textual representation for Max 5 is quite a lot different from the old representation from Max, the earlier versions of Max. Why? I don't know, but I guess it gives you some insight into the kind of fact that Max is an interpreted language, meaning that these are not, the objects that you make here are not the actual code. This is the code, and this is not even, this is also interpreted, like interpretation going down and down until it becomes something that actually works. Okay. We're only halfway through this script, so if you see, it's like, for example, here's a saying here's a new object, and these when it says new x, and you can see the object that it's making here is a scale. Oh, you know what I'm looking at is the forms. These the numbers after new x are for an x and y position on the screen, and a width, and this is, I believe, a height value or something. I noticed it's always the same, so I'm going to determine that this is a, I'll just copy these, I guess. So new x, anytime you see that, anytime you're looking at a patch, it's almost always this number here is the same, and I don't know what that number is. Okay, I'm just going to come clean. But since to create something that's not a complete mess, so that the objects are actually spread out across the screen, I'm going to use another couple of variables. So %LD for the x and the y positions of the objects that we make, the buffers that we make, and then we, as we can tell back here again, looking at the way the Max scripting looks, is that the next thing that we write is the name of the object and any arguments for the object. We keep on opening that window. So we're going to say it's a buffer. Actually, we'll give it a name, which let's just call it buff. And again, to make it each one of those unique, I'm going to call it buff %LD. So we've got, so far we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, this is our fourth variable, and we're going to have another variable which is going to be the name of the file, so %S for a symbol, and just because I want these to be stereo, I'm going to say -1, just so that it doesn't think that the 2 means I want buffers that are 2 milliseconds long, -1 for the duration, which will adapt to the length of the file that's loaded, and 2 to make it stereo. So here we have now all of the variables that we have coming into this sprintf. So we can do one thing at the top here. The first thing, I suppose, in the line of making stuff happen here is trigger bang symbol, because we want this symbol to be the first thing, and we can see that that's the since that's the last thing in the sprintf, that's where its input comes from, or argument 5 as it says. You can see, you scroll over these inlets. So that's going to be the symbol that replaces this value here, the name of the file. Alright, so now we just have to figure out all these other variables, like the number itself. I guess we'll need a counter again, so here's a counter. Again, it doesn't matter what number we go up to, doesn't matter to me. So we can put this in here, so that's going to be our unique number for each buffer that we create. The name of the buffer right there. I suppose we could also just use exactly the same for this unique variable name here on the for the script. And then the next two here, the XY positions. Oh yes. Okay. What's a good way of doing this? I suppose you could set them up in columns and rows. So let's say we'll have 10 per a column of 10 objects. So we'll divide by 10 and modulus 10 as a way of spreading them out across the screen. So we'll make modulus 10 we can make, oh well, we'll make divide by 10 the x position, and divide modulus 10 the y position. Obviously, if you know anything about XY screen coordinates, that's going to be a pretty small, what's the word for it? Yeah, if you have things that are only one pixel apart on your screen, you're probably going to be just as well as, they might as well just all be scrambled together anyway. So for our x position, which will be the vertical, the horizontal position, we can make those, we can spread those out by, let's say, 100 pixels for each object. I'm just going to add something so that they're not all scrunched towards the left side. I don't know, this is what you call positioning my new objects. And for the vertical position, I guess we can do something also to spread those out. We probably don't need as much vertical spread as we have horizontal spread here. And I guess, well, we can put them, well, sure. Actually, since the vertical position, I don't want them to appear over this junk. Maybe let's try adding some larger number here, like 300, for example, as our sort of starting vertical position on these objects. Alright, and if all goes according to plan, which of course nothing ever seems to go according to plan in these tutorials, not straight off anyway, we're going to drop a folder onto here, and the theory is that we're going to generate new buffers over here. Let's just see if that works. That's the only way I can think of to make this, to make the fun. So I'm going to take my same folder that has to have the patch in it, or else it won't be able to find the files. Anyway, drop them on there, and lo and behold, look at what happened here. We generated all these new buffers, which you can see there. Maybe they need to be wider to fit all those words in. Anyway, so now this might have taken about a bunch more time than you would like, but at least now you have something that can generate buffers. And what I guess I would recommend doing is deleting the buffers. Hello. Alright, and going back and saving this thing called Scriptalicious, so that any time you want to generate buffers, you can just open up this patch, and let's show you this again. Drop the folder onto this folder object here, the drop file object, and because we didn't reset the counter, they have an initial offset. And well, we can prove that the buffers are in there, and then if you've saved this thing, you can just copy your buffers, make a new patcher, and put them into a sub patch, so you automatically be able to just have buffers